Hello again. This tutorial is for section 5 of the cloud cover blanket, and this is the point where we've got to the edging, and there are two options. There's the square option where you just put an edging around the squares that you've done so far, and there's also the larger rectangular option where we add extra rows top and bottom. That's what I did with my blanket, just to make it fit on a particularly large sofa. And I'll show you both versions today. This is obviously not the blanket, because the blanket in itself is just so big now that it won't fit under the camera. So I've just taken my two sample squares and joined them together all the way round with the continuous join as you go. So you can just use your imagination to think that this is the edge of the blanket. And the first thing we're going to do is turn the blanket to the wrong side, to the reverse side. And this round is going to be worked all the way around, all four sides of the blanket, and that's for both versions. And so it's obviously worked on the reverse, so it will be on its reverse side when you turn it back over. And we're working with the James Seabrecht Twinkle in Silver. That'll give a nice sparkly edge to the squares. And you just want to attach your yarn as usual in any corner. This is just going to be a round of granny treble clusters as usual. Double crochet if you're in the US. Chain 2 in the corner to start, and that's the equivalent of the first treble, and then 2 treble stitches in the corner space. Nothing different there. And then you want to work along with 3 treble stitches in each of the next 7 spaces along the edge of the blanket. So I'm going to stop the video and work along with that, and I'll come back because we have something a little bit different to do at this point. So I'll see you when I get there. So now we've got the 7 clusters done, and we're at this corner here. Now this is actually a point where the 2 squares met in the previous round. And if you look, you will see that there's the corner of this square here, and there's also the corner of the square that's right up against it. If you were to put 3 clusters in this corner and then 3 clusters in this corner, you would end up with an extra cluster. And each time you did that all the way round, it would grow by 1 cluster. The result of that is that you would end up with an edge which has too many stitches in it, and it starts to ripple. So what we want to do is make a cluster like this, but sitting on top of the join rather than one in each corner. And there's an easy way to do that. So what we want to do is start in the first corner with treble 1, like that, and then yarn over and start to make a second treble stitch by pulling through the yarn, yarn over and pulling through 2 as usual. But at this point, when there are still 2 loops on the hook, stop. Don't finish off that treble stitch. Instead, yarn over once again and put your hook into the next corner space. Pull up your loop, and you've got 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. You've got 3 loops left on the hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Now, what's happened here is that you've done what's called a treble 2 together. You've got a stitch here that's half a stitch, and a stitch here that's half a stitch, and they're anchored at the top. So when I finish off this cluster, and you do that with 1 last treble stitch in the second corner, you can see that it looks a little bit different from the others. It looks like it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 posts the long part of the stitch, whereas these have just got 3. But in fact, if you look at the top, this is the important bit. There are 1, 2, 3 stitch tops in that cluster, and there are also 1, 2, 3 stitch tops in this cluster. So that, although it starts off by looking like 2 clusters, it comes into 1 at the top, and that's the important thing. And your cluster is now sitting right in the middle of that join. So that's the way to get over the joins between the squares. So after every 7 clusters along the edge, you'll come to another join. So you just need to work around the full 4 sides of your square with the treble clusters. When you get to the corners, the outside corners of the square, it's very simple. You've used it for all your granny squares. It's just treble 3, chain 2 and treble 3. So I'm going to work around this, pretending this is my square, my blanket, and I'll be back to show you the next round of the edge. See you in a minute. Here is my mini blanket made up of just 2 squares, and it has its edging now of the twinkle silver, and doesn't it give a nice little sparkly touch to the edge? This is where we're going to part company with the larger rectangular version, because for this square version we're now going to put the final edging round all 4 sides of the blanket. And this time, instead of treble clusters of 3 like we did just in the last round, we're going to be making treble stitches, but this time into the top, single treble stitches into the top of every stitch from the previous round. So I'll show you how to do that. First of all, as always, turn your blanket onto its other side. So we're now on the front of the blanket, and we're using the dark grey heather once more for this border. And like always, attach the yarn in any corner and chain 2. So that's 1, 2, and then we're going to put 1 treble stitch into that corner. Now, when you were doing the granny clusters, you always had 3 stitches, you know, the chain 2 and 2 trebles to start with. This time it's just going to be 2 stitches, the chain 2 and 1 treble. And then don't think to work into the space. We're actually going to be working into the very tops of these treble stitches from the previous round. So it's yarn over, go into the very first one, and make sure you pick up both loops in the top and make your treble stitch. And then yarn over again and into the next one. And that's all you need to do all the way around. I'll do a few and then let you see what it looks like. I have to make a confession here. I'm not actually working with the dark grey heather because I don't have any left. I'm working with a comparable yarn colour, and I have a feeling that it is a slightly thicker yarn. It's a different brand and it is very slightly thicker, but it's not going to make any difference to the video. And there is what it looks like when you've got your row of treble stitches worked into the tops of the granny clusters. So I will work around my mini blanket with this. I might not go around all 4 sides. I might just do enough to show you how to do the next round. But when you come to, first of all, just remember that when you've got these bits where you did the join over the cluster over the join, you do just have 3 stitches as normal to work into. And when you come to the corner, bring this into camera, it's treble 2, chain 2, treble 2 in each of the corners. So I'll work on a bit of this and let you see what it looks like, and then we'll start the second round. Here's my little blanket with its edge all the way round now. It looks like a nice little, I could use that as a little mat, couldn't I? Anyway, I've come all the way round and I'm back at the corner where I started. I've put my 2 treble crochet stitches into the corner and chain 2. That's the last part of that corner. And then I'm just going to slip stitch as usual into the top of the first chain 2 and close it up. So that is round 2 of the border for the square blanket finished. We're not going to cut the yarn because we're just going to do another round exactly the same way. First of all, chain 2 and then turn the blanket over, and we're going to make this round on the reverse side. Like has happened in previous squares, the chain 2 comes right at the extreme corner of that corner, if you know what I mean, the corner space. So we'll make that the first of the complete corner. So we'll just put another treble, chain 2 and 2 trebles in that corner. So just remember, when you come all the way round with this last edge, that this corner has been done completely at the beginning. So when you come up with your treble stitches, all you'll need to do when you've done your last treble stitch is slip stitch into that the top of that chain 2, and then it's just simply a case of working along, going into each stitch once more with a treble. And this gives a border of about, what would that be, a couple of centimeters. Yes, I was bang on, about 2 centimeters to give you an edge all the way round. So I'm not going to go all the way round with this because I'm going to actually pull this back, and I'll be back very shortly to show you the rectangular version of the blanket.